So as we take a look at UCS, we can see that we have our two fabric interconnects, which are basically the switches that control all of the local area network traffic and the storage area network traffic. So all of the network connectivity for the servers and all the storage connectivity from the servers flows up from the chassis into the fabric interconnects. The ports on the fabric interconnect can be configured in multiple ways. We have what's called unified ports, so they can become either storage ports or Ethernet ports in this configuration. Now, any of these ports can be configured as Ethernet or storage ports, but they have to be done in a contiguous manner. And the storage ports usually start from the high numbers and work down to the low numbers, and the Ethernet ports usually start from the low numbers and work up to the high numbers. There's a slider that you can use to adjust which ones are storage ports and which ones are Ethernet ports in the UCS configuration. That being said, in production, most of the time, people take advantage of the expansion slot to put additional ports in place and then configure the storage ports or Ethernet ports in that expansion slot and then use the fixed configuration ports on the switch for the server connectivity. The reason for this is that if I change the configuration of the storage ports or the network ports, I have to actually reboot the switch or reboot the module. And in this case, it's much more disruptive just to reboot the module and adjust the configuration. When we connect to the network, we run by default in something called end host mode. And in this case, the fabric interconnects, as they attach to the network, basically look like a big ESX server with a bunch of virtual servers behind it. So basically all of the chassis that connect to the fabric interconnects, and here I only have one, but I can have multiple chassis that connect to my fabric interconnects, host servers that to the network just look like a big ESX server with multiple virtual servers connecting to the network. So it's very easy to connect this to the network. I don't have to worry about spanning tree at all. I don't have to worry about blocked ports. And I can configure virtual port channels coming out of the fabric interconnects, one from each fabric interconnect attaching to the local area network. So this configuration is very redundant and it's active-active. The other thing to keep in mind is that these fabric interconnects themselves for the Ethernet and for the storage traffic are active-active. So it's not active-passive where you're only using one side, and then when that one fails, you use the other side. Both sides can be used simultaneously so you can get the full bandwidth out of the chassis all the way up through the network. So it's very easy to configure. I just share down the VLANs that I want my servers to have access to, and I cable for the throughput of the servers that I need, not necessarily for the connectivities that the individual servers need. So if I need more bandwidth, it's very easy just to add another link to this port channel and provide more bandwidth to all the servers that are southbound to these two fabric interconnects. Similarly, the switch also runs in a storage mode called NPV, or Network Port Virtualization. And what that allows us to do is actually not run any storage services on our fabric interconnect and proxy the logins into the storage network from the fabric interconnects. So that means that I don't have to necessarily manage the storage on my fabric interconnects. I don't have to worry about interoperability between Cisco UCS and my current storage area network if I have a different vendor's storage area network. And it allows me to have that storage connectivity into the SAN in a redundant manner. So once again, I want to maintain my Fabric A or my SAN A and my SAN B paths for redundancy. So in this case, I would have Fabric A using Fiber Channel or FCOE to attach into my storage area network and use SAN path A, and I would have Fabric B, once again using Fiber Channel or Fiber Channel over Ethernet, attaching to SAN B, and I would have my completely redundant paths that never converge. And they would be active-active while they are both up, and in the event of a failure, one path would go down and I would fail over to the second path. And that's all controlled by the multipathing driver on the storage server. So the fabric interconnects run in nhost mode and NPV mode by default, but they also have the capability to run in spanning tree mode and fiber channel switch mode if you want to run those additional services. But 99.9% of the time, my customers run default the nhost mode and the NPV mode and never look back. It's really only for an individual corner case where you may need the spanning tree mode or the fiber channel services mode in this configuration. That covers how UCS connects to the LAN and the SAN. Please join me for the next lesson, 1.8, Examining UCS Manager.